Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're stepping into the really atmospheric history of Raynham Hall in Norfolk, England.
Oh, Raynham Hall.
This isn't just, another grand old house. It's a 400-year-old estate, still home to the Townsend family, actually.
Still lived in, wow.
And it's absolutely steeped in stories, and, well, not all of them are entirely of this world. It's even whispered to be the place where perhaps the most famous ghost photo ever was taken.
Right, the brown lady. It's iconic. And for this deep dive, you've given us some great material. We've got articles from Raynham Hall, The Little House of Horrors, Raynham Hall Paranormal Events, True Ghost Tales, and also The Ghosts of Raynham Hall, Norfolk, from Haunted Rooms.
Yeah, quite a range.
So our plan today, our mission, if you like, is to explore the history, the foundations, and of course those captivating ghost stories, especially focusing on the brown lady, but also the other sort of unsettling encounters reported there.
Okay, let's dive into the building itself. Raynham Hall's story, it kicks off in 1622 with Sir Roger Townsend. He was a big deal landowner, politician.
Yeah.
But sadly, he didn't actually see it finished. He passed away in 1637, the very year it was completed.
Oh, that's a shame.
And listen to this, the design was by Sir Robert Pratt. Apparently, he spent 3 years traveling around Europe, just soaking up architectural ideas.
Ah, so that explains the style. It was considered really forward-thinking for its time, wasn't it?
Yeah, a first of its kind, they said.
Pratt bringing those continental styles over. It wasn't just looks, it was like setting new trends in England. Made the hall really stand out, maybe even added to that later sense of mystery, you know?
Yeah.
And then later, in the 1730s, you had Charles Turnip, Townsend, great nickname, by the way.
Turnip, yeah.
He brought in William Kent. And his additions sound pretty spectacular. Carved chimney pieces, mosaic paintings, those decorated doorways, and that ceiling in the marble hall must be something else.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's not exactly a small place either. The estate is huge, 7,000 acres.
7,000.
And it covers the first 7 miles of the River Wensum. Really highlights its importance, as one of Norfolk's oldest buildings, showing off that early European influence.
Absolutely. And the fact that the Townsends have been there for over 400 years, that really says something. It's not just a museum piece, it's a living family history.
A long history.
And even during World War II, the military actually requisitioned the hall. Soldiers were living right there alongside the family.
No way.
Yeah, apparently you can still see bullet holes on the upper floors. Kind of a stark reminder of that time.
Wow. Okay, but let's be honest. When people talk Raynham Hall, they usually think of one particular resident. The brown lady.
The star attraction, you might say.
The first sighting people mentioned was at a Christmas party, way back in 1735. And the general thinking is that this is the ghost of Lady Dorothy Walpole.
Yes, Lady Dorothy. Charles Townsend's second wife. And importantly, the sister of the Prime Minister at the time, Robert Walpole. So, quite connected.
Right.
The historical accounts we have, well, they paint a bit of a grim picture of her marriage. There were rumors about Charles's temper, maybe quite violent, and jealousy, too.
Yeah, this is where it gets potentially quite dark. One story says Charles suspected she was having an affair with Lord Wharton and just locked her up in her rooms.
Grim.
Another version suggests maybe the Countess of Wharton set her up somehow.
Intrigue upon intrigue.
Either way, the tragic version ends with Dorothy confined there inside Raynham Hall, until she apparently died of smallpox in 1726.
Right. That's the dominant story, the legend. But, and this is a big but, if you look wider, there's, well, a pretty significant contradiction. Medical documents that surfaced in the 1960s seem to suggest something totally different.
Like what?
Like maybe Dorothy actually had a happy, fulfilling life, was well liked, which really makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It does. So if that's true, why has this story, this really sad legend of a trapped, unhappy ghost, stuck around so strongly? What need does that story fill for people?
That's the million-dollar question with hauntings like this, isn't it? The power of the narrative.
It really is. Okay, so let's look at some specific sightings. That guest at the 1735 Christmas party gave this incredibly vivid description. Saw a figure in a brown dress, hence the name, obviously.
Yeah, the brown lady.
And she looked uncannily like a painting in the house. But the really chilling bits were her face, described as glowing, and these empty, dark eye sockets.
Ugh, that detail about the eyes. That's properly creepy. Sends a shiver, like you said.
Totally. And then you get accounts that really ramp up the fear factor, like Colonel Loftus's experiences. Apparently, whatever he saw was so disturbing, it made staff members quit.
Wow, so not just a quick glimpse. These were experiences that really, really shook people.
Exactly. And then there's the almost like theatrical story of Captain Frederick Marryat. He was friends with Charles Dickens, apparently.
The novelist, right.
He decided to investigate in 1836. Claims he actually saw the ghost holding a lamp.
What?
But it wasn't a peaceful vibe. He described her grin as malicious and diabolical. And get this, he supposedly fired a loaded gun at her.
He shot at the ghost.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Caused her to vanish. And, maybe not surprisingly, he never went back to Raynham Hall.
Well, Marryat's story certainly adds a layer of drama, doesn't it? A writer, friend of Dickens, battling a ghost with a gun. It's very memorable, whether you think it's literal truth or, maybe a bit embellished.
A good story, either way.
Mm.
But for a lot of people, the absolute bedrock of Raynham's haunted rep is that photo, the really famous one.
Ah, yes, the photograph.
Taken September 19th, 1936. Captain Hubert C. Provand and his assistant Indre Shira. They were there for Country Life magazine.
On assignment, standard stuff until...
Exactly. The story goes, Provand was actually under the camera cloth, the big old cameras.
Right, setting up the shot.
And Shira suddenly saw something on the main staircase?
Just...
Apparently so. Shira yelled. Provand took the picture, and bam, ghost photo history.
And that photo, published in Country Life that same year, it really became the ghost photo, didn't it? Still probably the best known one.
For sure. But obviously, there are skeptics.
Always. What do they say?
Well, the usual stuff. Maybe it was faked. Double exposure is a common theory. Or maybe it just looks like something else, like a statue of the Virgin Mary, and it's just light and shadow.
Pareidolia, yeah, seeing patterns, it's possible.
And interestingly, the paranormal investigator Harry Price, now he's a name connected with Borley Rectory, another very famous haunting.
Oh yeah, Price, bit controversial himself sometimes.
Right. Well, he interviewed Provand and Shira, and apparently he believed them. He thought the story and the photo were genuine.
Price's endorsement? Well, for some in the paranormal world, that means a lot.
But yeah, given his history with other debated cases like Borley, it also makes you look closer. It just shows how hard it is to definitively prove or disprove this stuff. Absolutely. Now, beyond the Brown Lady, who gets all the headlines, our sources mention other potential spectral residents at Raynham.
Oh, like who?
Well, there are tales of some lesser-known figures, a caretaker, and his cocker spaniel.
A ghost dog. That is specific.
Isn't it? And also 2 ghostly children, and the ghost of James Scott, the Duke of Monmouth.
Okay, so quite a cast of characters potentially roaming the halls. It adds to that feeling of Raynham being, busy on the spectral plane, not just focused on the one main legend.
Definitely seems that way.
Each sighting probably has its own backstory, doesn't it? Waiting to be figured out.
Now, this Duke of Monmouth, James Scott, he had quite a life. Illegitimate son of King Charles II.
Right, the merry monarch's son.
He got accused of high treason back in 1683. Some plot against his dad. He had to flee to the Netherlands.
Didn't stop him though, did it?
Not at all. After Charles II died, he came back. Wanted to claim the throne from his uncle, King James II. Even accused James II of poisoning his own brother, Charles.
Bold move. Didn't end well for him, though.
No. His rebellion failed. He was caught in 1685 and executed. And apparently it was a really gruesome execution. Took like 8 blows of the axe.
Ugh. Horrible.
And then, kind of morbidly, they apparently dug up his body later just to paint a portrait because they didn't have one.
Seriously? Wow. Drama even after death.
And there's that other weird legend connecting him to the man in the iron mask over in France. Probably not true, lots of debate there, but it's just another strange layer to his story.
So many layers, but why Raynham Hall? What's the supposed connection?
The sources suggest it might be down to the friendship between the original Sir Roger Townsend and Monmouth's father, King Charles II.
Ah, okay. So a connection through association, that's plausible, I suppose, in terms of folklore. Sometimes hauntings are linked to places people felt strongly about or places connected to significant people in their lives.
Like residual energy, maybe?
That's one theory, yeah. Residual hauntings, like an energetic recording of past events playing out. If the Townsends were close to his father, maybe that's a link, if you believe in that kind of thing.
It's a thought. Now, switching gears a bit, that True Ghost Tales article really goes into the feel of the place. It describes this heavy atmosphere, tingling skin, chills. The sense that every little sound, every creak means something more.
Yeah, setting the scene. What experiences did they detail? What stood out to you?
Okay, the Red Room sounds absolutely terrifying. People reporting intense fear, feeling like they're being touched by something unseen.
Unpleasant.
And that feeling of a heavy weight on your chest while you're trying to sleep? Nope, no thank you.
Yeah, sleep paralysis phenomena often get woven into ghost stories, but that feeling of pressure is a common report in places claimed to be haunted. Classic signs.
And then there's the story of this spectral carriage. Like a ghostly horse-drawn carriage with a headless driver.
Headless. Very Sleepy Hollow.
Right. Supposedly seen on stormy nights, thundering down the path and then just vanishing. So dramatic.
That visual drama really adds to the folklore, doesn't it? These kinds of apparitions, carriages, horsemen, they often tie back to older times, maybe reflect old travel fears or accidents.
And the phantom footsteps, too. Just hearing soft, steady footsteps echoing in empty hallways. I mean, that must be incredibly unnerving. The unseen aspect.
Absolutely. Auditory phenomena, footsteps, voices when no one's there can be especially disturbing because sound feels so immediate, so present, especially when you expect quiet.
And talking of voices, they mention hearing faint murmurs, sometimes like arguments, sometimes just a single, really eerie, sad song.
Indistinct voices.
Yeah, contributes to that feeling that the past is still kind of hanging around.
And the fact they're indistinct, you can't quite make them out, that often makes it feel even creepier, right? Suggests something just beyond your grasp.
Totally. Oh, and the butler's tale. This poor guy, John the butler, hears footsteps behind him, feels cold breath on his neck.
Okay, getting closer.
And then whispering voices. And the climax is this voice supposedly replying, "We are unseen, but not unheard."
Oh, wow. That's specific.
Can you imagine? He apparently fled in terror. I would too. That line is genuinely chilling.
That's a classic ghost story element, isn't it? The spirit actually communicating directly. It ramps up the sense of a conscious presence. And yeah, that line is pretty memorable. Very unsettling.
Then there's room 26. Sounds like ground zero for weirdness. Cold air, strange moonlight patterns, this dusty old four-poster bed.
The whole Gothic setup.
And then rhythmic tapping coming from behind an old cracked mirror. Seeing a dark movement in the reflection. A shadowy figure reaching out, looking sorrowful.
Mirrors are always creepy in these stories, seen as portals or something.
And the person reporting it felt like they were being physically pulled towards the mirror. That's intense.
Yeah, the combination of sensory details in that room, cold, sound, visuals, even that physical pulling sensation, it definitely paints room 26 as a major hotspot, allegedly.
And finally, just the general theme running through it all. Shadows and cold spots, random temperature drops, seeing your breath, shadows moving on their own, these icy fingers of cold. Glimpses of dark figures vanishing.
Yeah, shadows, cold spots. These are textbook claims for haunted locations, aren't they? They're hard to measure or explain easily with science, which is why they persist as signs of the paranormal for many people. The fleeting nature makes them even more mysterious.
So after all that, all these stories, the photo, the history, what's Raynham Hall like today? Can people like us just, go and have a look?
Well, interestingly, it's still primarily a private home. The Townsend family still lives there.
So not really a tourist trap then?
Not exactly, which kind of adds to its character, I think. But they do apparently offer private tours sometimes if you email and ask, and they have open days a few times a year. You have to pre-book tickets, mind you.
Okay. So opportunities exist, but you have to plan it.
Exactly. It's not like just showing up at a castle ruin.
And even if you don't get inside, that 7,000-acre estate sounds like it would be worth a walk around anyway.
Definitely. Beautiful Norfolk countryside. And what's quite touching, maybe, is that the current family member living there apparently feels quite comfortable with the brown lady's presence, almost like an accepted part of the house.
Wow, finds comfort. That's unexpected. Like peaceful coexistence.
Perhaps. After 400 years, maybe you just get used to your spectral roommates.
Maybe so.
Okay,
so wrapping up our deep dive here. We've covered a lot. Raynham Hall's long history, its architectural significance, and of course these really compelling ghost stories.
Yeah, the whole mystery around the brown lady. Was she tragic? Was she happy? The debate continues.
And that photo?
Yeah.
It's still argued about today. Plus all those other reported happenings. It definitely earns its haunted reputation.
It really does. And like we discussed, even with historical records pointing different ways, the real story behind the hauntings, if there is one, is still pretty elusive, isn't it? Lots of room for speculation, which keeps us fascinated.
Absolutely. The ambiguity is part of the appeal, perhaps. Which leads us to a final thought for everyone listening. When you think about those conflicting stories about Lady Dorothy's life, what does the fact that her ghost story, the tragic one, has lasted so long? What does that tell us about maybe our need to make sense of tragedy, or just the power of a good story, of folklore?
It's a great question. Is the truth of Raynham Hall just in the historical facts, or is it also in the stories we continue to tell about it, the meanings we draw from them?
Exactly. Something to ponder. What do you make of it all? Definitely gives you something to think about long after this deep dive is over.